All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I got a great one for you today. So, what do I have here? Well, Joe Biden announced another round of student loan debt forgiveness. I'm going to give you the specifics on that in just a minute. And of course, Fox News reacted to it by absolutely melting down. We also have Trump gets confronted to his face, where a Fox host says, "Hey, man, you wanted to drain the swamp. You didn't drain the swamp. You said you would. You didn't do it." That's a really interesting clip as well. We have Asa Hutchinson making everybody laugh because he's holding presidential campaign events with literally like 4 people at them. Look, part of me feels bad, but then the other part of me is just an asshole and is massively enjoying this fail campaign. Marjorie Taylor Greene goes after Biden and makes him look a lot cooler than he is. The Daily Wire puts their homophobia on overdrive. George Santos is now accused of continuing to commit the exact same crimes that he's being prosecuted for, which is like as ballsy as it gets, right? Like he's being prosecuted for fraud crimes, and he's like, I can't wait to continue to do fraud. That guy is really a work of art, man. He is really something special. And then later on in the show, we'll discuss the Pramila Jayapal scandal. I don't know how many of you guys have been following this, but Pramila Jayapal said something that was based and true vis-a-vis Israel, then got some backlash over it, and immediately bent the knee and cucked herself. It was honestly really embarrassing, and I hated to see it. So we'll discuss that later on in the show. Everybody do me a big favor before we continue here. Click like, click subscribe. If you do nothing else, click that subscribe button. It's going to be a long time till we hit that next plaque, but you build it one at a time. So if you click subscribe, that'll help us get to, I think it's 10 million, right? Isn't it 10 million where you get the next plaque, or is it 5? I'm pretty sure it's 10. But anyway, do that for me. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. Much love and thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. That link is in the video description box below. And thank you to everybody who tips on YouTube. There's a thanks button below. You guys make this possible. Remember, I've never had a conversation with an advertiser. I'm very proud of that fact, but it would not be possible without you guys and your kindness and your support. And remember, you can always listen to the full audio podcast version of the show on Spotify if you like. You don't have to go video for video like on YouTube. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here. Joe Biden and VP Kamala Harris announced a new round of student loan debt reduction. This time, it's $39 billion. For about 809,000 people. So what's going on here? Well, you guys know about the previous student loan debt reduction. What happened is under the HEROES Act, they decided, which is a law that was passed in the wake of 9/11, but it was being invoked during the COVID pandemic because it's a national emergency. The idea was with that legal justification, he could modify or waive or cancel student loan debt. Now, this is something the Trump administration had done bits and pieces of this under the HEROES Act, student loan debt reduction. And so Biden thought, well, this is probably my best path to get student loan debt reduction. Well, various courts slapped it down, but the Biden administration, to their credit, kept appealing. It got to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court slapped it down as well. And Biden, to my surprise, turned around and said, okay, well, if you slapped it down this way, we're going to go ahead and do it through the 1965 Higher Education Act, which is, in my opinion, an even more clear legal rationale to reduce or eliminate student loan debt. Because the federal government holds about 92% of student loan debt, so the Secretary of Education has the right to do whatever they want with those loans. They could waive them, they could modify them, they could cancel it outright, and so he is fighting on that front. But this is a totally separate new round of student loan debt reduction. And my understanding is that this $39 billion of student loan debt reduction for 809,000 people, this is for people who are basically the OGs of owing student loan debt. This is for people who have been paying their student loans back for like 20 or 25 years. So, I mean, unequivocally, without a doubt, this is a good thing. Like, I feel terrible for those people who've been crushed under the boot of an unfair system for this long of a time. It's crazy. Student loan debt shouldn't even be a thing, right? I mean, we should treat college the same way we treat middle school, the same way we treat elementary school. Like, it's free at the point of service. You just go and you're good. But no, people are saddled with debt just trying to have a half-decent life. So, wonderful move here from the Biden administration. It's, in my opinion, yet another piece of evidence that even though I have massive, massive issues with Joe Biden, it's not even close between him and any Republican administration or any Republican politician. He's just far and away better. Well, cue Fox News. They decided to jump in and make a whole bunch of bogus anti-student loan debt relief arguments. Let's listen.
I think there's a lot of smart people in the Biden administration who knew this was illegal to begin with. But you did it. They did it anyway, because to your earlier point, to curry favor, to pit us versus them. I mean, you see Cardona saying level the playing field. Level it for who? People with college degrees are the most fortunate people on the planet. If you have a college degree from an American university, you are amongst the top 0.00001% of the people on this planet.
You've heard this argument a million times. So have I. It's the idea that, bro, these are actually the elites. You're helping out elites by forgiving student loan debt. Really? Well, by one estimate, 90% of the people who are getting relief make $75,000 a year or less. 90%. The most conservative estimate is about 75% of the benefit will go to households making $88,000 or less per year. No matter how you slice it or dice it, this is helping working class people. This is helping middle class people. This is helping regular folks. But they try to spin it like, actually, you're serving the rich. No, this is not serving the rich. But you know who does love serving the rich? You guys do. You guys have never been a tax cut for the rich you didn't love. So why now all these, this faux posturing about, bro, you're trying to help the wealthy, and we're against that here on Fox News. You guys are the kings and queens of helping the wealthy. And by the way, again, to the idea that, well, I think a lot of smart people in the Biden administration knew this was illegal. Student loan debt reduction is the most legal thing imaginable. Don't take my word for it. We've read it on air before. Go read the text of the 1965 Higher Education Act. The Secretary of Education absolutely has the right to do what they want with that debt, because the federal government holds 92% of the debt. This isn't a question. It's just a hack, political activist, right-wing Supreme Court that decided they want to slap it down because they're ideologically far right. Okay, let's continue.
You will have a better life. You will make more money. Your children will live in safer communities. You will experience the ultimate American dream. There's no playing field to level. So this is complete contempt of the judiciary system, but more specifically, the Supreme Court, which I got to tell you has come to the rescue in the last 2 weeks. We have Supreme Court ruling on this, affirmative action. Then, of course, we got the ruling with the White House with their, too much involvement in social media. Even yesterday, we had a rebuke of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Again, their tiny small investors were hanging by a thread because of a heavy-handed Biden administration SEC. So you've got an administration that's using all of their agencies to circumvent not only the Constitution, not only the Supreme Court, but what made us great in the first place: competition, the profit motive.
Oh. Yes, the profit motive. That's what made us great in the first place. Oh, please. This idea that Biden is going rogue and being authoritarian and dictatorial and overriding the other branches of government, nothing can be further from the truth. He is a massive, massive institutionalist. In fact, he is way too much of an institutionalist. That's one of my main criticisms of him. Like, for example, with this student loan debt reduction, with invoking the Higher Education Act, he's in the meantime allowing interest to accrue on the debt and voluntarily starting repayment. He could just postpone it, or he could just turn around and wipe the debt slate clean up front. And then if it gets to the Supreme Court and they say you can't do that, tell them, okay, go ahead and try to put it back. Be my guest. You're not going to be able to figure out how to do it. But what he's doing, he's being so careful to dot every I and cross every T and go through this in the legally correct way. It's the exact opposite of what Charles Payne is saying here. This is absolute garbage commentary.
When they talk about fundamentally changing America, this is exactly what they're talking about. So he came out the day the ruling was put out there. He made a statement, and in that statement, he essentially told, and I heard it, and they talk about dog whistles all the time, to colleges, stay the course, don't change anything on the Supreme Court thing with affirmative action. Then he came out on this. He said, listen, we're working on alternatives. Of course they were working on alternatives. The day they implemented this policy to forgive $400 billion, they had no legal authority to forgive. They were working on alternatives, Martha, because they knew it was wrong then, and they know it's wrong now.
I love how he flips the power dynamic here. The idea is that the Biden administration is massively overreaching, when the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court are full of a bunch of judicial supremacists and judicial tyrants, and they're the ones who are being activists, and they're the ones who are imposing their will on the country, despite the fact that what they're doing is not constitutionally backed up. That's what you need to understand. If any branch of government is massively overreaching in this instance, it's the Supreme Court. is just like the Lochner era. Go read about the Lochner era. It was a judicially activist court, but in a right-wing direction. Because in today's day and age, of course, whenever you hear judicial activists, they say, oh, it's the left-wing judges are judicial activists. No, in this instance, it's the right-wing judges who are judicial activists. And to the extent that the Biden administration is fighting back, number one, it's not strong enough. But number two, they're trying to find legal avenues to do things that are good. That's what they're doing. You might not agree with those things, but they certainly have the ability and the authority to do a lot of these things. In fact, they have the ability and the authority to do more than they pretend they can do.
I want to just show everybody at home a moment that they may remember from the campaign trail when Elizabeth Warren, who thinks that this is a great idea to relieve all of this debt, was confronted by a man who disagrees with that. Watch this.
I want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us who did the right thing get screwed.
She says basically yes, Charles. Yeah. You know, those of you who did the right thing, you get screwed, basically. Let me just put this up, because here's the...
I love this argument. The fact that they're still repeating this at this late date is astonishing to me, because it is the easiest argument to rebut of all time. Bro, I did it the way that they told me to do it. And so, what about me, bro? I don't think you should forgive anybody's loans because my loans weren't forgiven. That's like saying, hey, I was an indentured servant, and I know you guys want to like get rid of indentured servitude now, but what about me, bro? I was an indentured servant, and that wasn't fair to me. So you better keep it unfair for everybody in the meantime. You can make that argument with literal slavery. If a slave was in chains for 50 years of their life, and then at the very end, they get freed. They're like, hey, this isn't fair. Some people have only been slaves for a year. So you're really just going to free them? That's unfair to me because I was in chains for 50 years, bro. So make them do it for 49 more. What the hell? If it was unfair to me, it's got to be unfair to everybody. Because if you make it unfair for everybody, somehow, with my twisted logic, it's more fair. No, the fact of the matter is, student loan debt shouldn't exist. Full stop. It shouldn't exist. It should be just like middle school, just like elementary school, just like high school, public, free at the point of service, end of conversation. Nobody acts like, you know, we should have the profit motive involved with elementary schools. Everybody just accepts this is what a civilized society does. This is what your tax money goes towards. It makes perfect sense. We want to educate the population. But we have this weird scam for higher education where it's like, go into massive amounts of debt. Or not. Let's not do that. But they keep bringing up this argument as if it makes their point. No, it makes our point for us.
And we saw it in the midterms, Charles.
Right.
This is a very popular plan in the country. 54% approve of canceling all of this debt. So it's no surprise, given the slippage with young voters, that this is something that the president and his campaign want to make sure they can get back to.
Yeah, you know, and we have that poll up there. You say canceling $20,000 of debt for people making $125,000 or less. You know, to put it in perspective, though, let's say you're 30 years old and you're making $125,000 a year. You're on your way, and you have a college degree. You are on your way to making $4 or $5 million over a lifetime.
Yeah, how many people make that much money, though, Dippy? How many people make that much money? You act like this is the norm. That is not the norm. That person's in like the top 10%.
$3 million more than someone with a high school diploma. So, you know, I think you can put.
We want to help those people too. That's the thing. Your policies hurt those people. Our policies help those people. I think not only should we have no student loan debt, I think we should have free college, and I also think we should have free trade school, and you get to choose what you want to do. This way, everybody gets the benefit. I'm in favor of everybody getting the benefit.
Do you have to pay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, do you have to pay all of your bills that you take on? By the way, it was always taught to us as an investment. Education is supposed to set us free. Higher education is supposed to be the ultimate investment. Why would you have to be paid back on that? But you're right. It did work in the midterm elections. Apparently.
By the way, this is rare that they're actually acknowledging the polling and acknowledging the reality that it is super popular. And it is super popular because good policy is good politics. It's kind of amazing that they're acknowledging this. Because usually they would do the opposite. They would act like, this isn't popular at all. This is extremist. This is socialism.
Did get a lot of young voters out there. And I think a lot of young voters probably feel the bait and switch. They probably are saying, you know what? I think Joe Biden played us. So they probably had to do this, but what I despise is the language around it. The language that you heard from Cordoba, also Vice President Kamala Harris saying, we're fighting for Americans, there are more to come. What are you fighting? I don't understand. Someone took out a loan to get a great job.
Charles, they're fighting for free stuff because people love free stuff. And
we love free stuff. Yeah, we do.
Wow. What a clip. What a clip. These people, they just want free stuff. Every civilized society has police protection. That's free. It's funded by taxes. That's free. It's free at the point of service. Free. Firefighters. That's free. Roads. That's free. This is all funded by taxpayers. Every developed country has free health care. Free at the point of service, paid for by taxes. That's free. We have Medicare in this country. Free healthcare for old people. Medicaid, free healthcare for very poor people. This is called a basic social safety net. That's what that is. They're like, yeah, people love free stuff. You know what? Yeah, they do. They love free basics. They love free necessities. Because in a civilized society, you can't have a meritocracy unless you get everybody at a decent starting line. You can't run a 100-yard dash where one person's at the 90-yard line already and then other people are at the negative 50-yard line. Can't do it. Not fair, not reasonable, kind of stupid, kind of rigged. The word rigged comes to mind. But here they are, mocking free stuff. You actually want to give people free college? That's absurd. Free schooling? Well, like we discussed, we already have free elementary school. We already have free middle school. We already have free high school. So if you want to be consistent in your logic here, go ahead. Advocate for making it for profit for middle school, high school, and elementary school. Go ahead. Advocate for putting that in the marketplace. Advocate for people taking out tremendous loans just to let their kid go to third grade. Go ahead. I dare you. Let me know how that works out for you. Well, at least you acknowledge it's not going to work out well for you. At least you acknowledge the polling is on our side on this one. But the final point, look, when these people talk like this, what they don't tell you is they are also in favor of free stuff. They're just in favor of free stuff for the rich. These are people who have never met a tax cut for the wealthy they didn't love. These are people who have never met a subsidy for a giant multinational corporation that they didn't love. So they want free stuff. They just want it to go to their buddies who are already wealthy and they're wearing suits and ties. But God forbid it's quote-unquote free stuff for you, for regular people. Oh my God, they melt down over it and they do a segment where they call out how absurd this is. No, look, hey, I welcome this. Go ahead. If you beat up on Joe Biden day in and day out for stuff like eliminating student loan debt or reducing student loan debt, that only makes the Democrats' case for them. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.